Do you want to live in Virginia Beach? Let me tell you 10 things I think you really need to know before you make any decisions. These will probably really impact where you choose to live, or if you choose to live here at all. And we're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sam Sansalone and I'm a real estate agent in the Hampton Roads area. That's from Virginia Beach all the way up towards Williamsburg and past Williamsburg. And I do videos every week about living and moving to this area. So if you have any questions about living here or how to move here, let me know. I have my contact information in the description, and people reach out to me all the time asking me questions, and I love helping people relocate to this area. If you love my videos, I would appreciate it a lot if you could hit that like button or just smash it really hard for the YouTube algorithm. It does really actually help my channel out a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to tell you 10 things specifically. We're going to start from 1 and go to 10, and I think there might be some that you might be surprised about. This is coming from a local. I am a local. I lived in the Hampton Roads area all of my life, so I want to be able to give you some local perspective. So I think these will help you, especially depending on where you're coming from and relocating here. So number 1 is Virginia Beach is one of the more sought after cities, or probably the most in demand or most recognized city in this area, but don't discount other places around there to live. There are a lot of cities around Virginia Beach. So for example, Chesapeake, Suffolk, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News, Smithfield, Isle of Wight, Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown. I mean, I'm like, how far do I have to go with this? There are so many that are in and around upwards of an hour or less away from Virginia Beach. So if you focus just on Virginia Beach, you might miss out on other opportunities to live in other places where there might be houses you might like better or environments you like better. And that's one thing to notice about these areas, is that each city has probably kind of a reputation, a unique reputation, and also a unique environment. And so if you live in, for example, Norfolk feels sometimes older and has more character in some places than Virginia Beach. Chesapeake feels like there's a stigma to Chesapeake, that there's a lot of country in Chesapeake. And then also Suffolk has lots of more open spaces, more country as well. And then Portsmouth has a similar feel in some places to Norfolk. But then if you go up towards the peninsula, Newport News, Hampton, those feel different. Williamsburg has its own vibe, colonial Williamsburg, all the history up there. So all the cities feel different. Here are some bang for buck options that I think are some of the best in anywhere in Hampton Roads. Number 1 is West Chesapeake and Suffolk. I love this area. Check out Carrollton for another area similar to that Northeast Suffolk and Chesapeake area that might be worth checking out as well. South Chesapeake has a lot of similarities to Virginia Beach that I think would be worth checking out if you want the same kind of school districts that other places in Virginia Beach have, in similar houses and neighborhood styles. And if you're on the peninsula and considering Virginia Beach, I'd check out Williamsburg, Yorktown, and that north side of Fort Eustis, because if you don't mind the drive going over to Virginia Beach, I like the atmosphere in Williamsburg more than almost any other area anywhere in Hampton Roads. Please don't focus just on Virginia Beach. There are other great cities to choose from. So number 2 is be careful if you want to live on the peninsula and commute to the south side, or vice versa. So areas around Virginia Beach over towards Suffolk, that whole area is what's called the south side of Hampton Roads. If you go just north of there, where I mentioned Hampton, Newport News, and north towards Williamsburg, that is called the peninsula of Hampton Roads. So between the south side and the peninsula is water, lots of water. But connecting those two spots are bridges and tunnels. You got the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel on the far east side that connects Norfolk and Hampton, and you've got the Monitor Merrimack Bridge Tunnel that connects Suffolk and Newport News. And also you've got the James River Bridge that connects over towards Smithfield and Carrollton up towards Newport News as well. Those are the 3 primary ways to get across from both sides. The reason I say this is because if you are searching at Virginia Beach and you don't like what you find, and you say, oh, you get more bang for buck in Newport News or Hampton or up towards Williamsburg. That's true, but there is a downside, and the big downside here is the commute. It is so frustrating to get from one side of the area to the other, crossing those tunnels and bridges and through the interstates, especially during rush hour. There can be accidents or traffic jams or whatever any time of the day. It can take you 30, 45 minutes to an hour or more longer to get through those tunnels than you would if you were just going from one side of Virginia Beach to, for example, Norfolk. If you're giving up living in Virginia Beach To live in Hampton and Newport News, you're going to get, for example, lower ranked school districts, generally speaking, and you don't get as much that's as close to you as opposed to if you lived in Virginia Beach or Chesapeake or somewhere around that area, like for example Norfolk. Now next I want to talk about Virginia Beach stinks right now for new construction. So if that is what you're looking for, consider other cities. For example, Chesapeake has a lot more options, probably because of there's a lot more land to build in going farther south into Chesapeake. Now it's a farther drive, but it's an option. And you also get great school districts in Chesapeake, so you're not giving that up to be down there. Also, I would consider Suffolk and Carrollton. Looking in those western parts of Hampton Roads is another place I would consider as well if you want more options for new construction. But Virginia Beach has so little. I've looked, I mean, even right now, under $500,000, there's almost nothing on the market in new construction. There are some condos for the most part, some attached houses, but very little. And even if you go up over $500,000 and $600,000, there's really not much for single family houses that are new construction. So you may have to either just buy a lot and hope you can build on it eventually, or you gotta go higher in price or just shift cities. Now number 4 is you will see, especially in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, a lot of what's considered a frog. Have you ever heard of a frog before? Not a ribbit frog, a finished room over the garage. A room literally over the garage. Sometimes they'll call it a bonus room, sometimes they'll call it, just an office. But this is a room that, it's a pretty decent sized room because it usually encompasses the entirety of how long and big the garage is, if not longer. The positive is sometimes they feel pretty big. The drawback is that not all of the ceiling is shaped the same, and you'll have parts that kind of angle from the ceiling down into the corners of the room, and so it makes the room feel like it's bigger from one side to the other, but the ceiling height is not the same across. You might be ducking along the sides of the room because the angle of the ceiling is not the same across the entire room. And also the closet sizes are smaller, if any. Sometimes they don't have closets at all. Some of the houses that are listed online are listed as a certain amount of bedrooms, but they don't often tell you that the frog is often one of those bedrooms. And so people want like 4 traditional bedrooms or 5 traditional bedrooms, and they find out that one of them is the frog, and it's not either the same size, doesn't have the same closet space, or doesn't have any at all, and so it doesn't feel like you're actually buying a 5-bedroom house sometimes. Now next is, so I have talked to so many people from different cities and states, and they're like, what's going on with your walls? So the 80s, 90s, 2000s got real popular with these swirly type of walls. It looks like it was a mistake, like people just constantly made the same mistake over and over again. The reality is this was the intention to do this, and I don't have an answer as to why. I'm guessing it's because it was a cheaper way to do it and it covered blemishes very easily. I don't have the actual answer to that, but it is common, and so if you do plan to move here, just be prepared for these swirly walls randomly across the area. So number 6, sidewalks are not a given. People ask me a lot about neighborhoods that have sidewalks. They want to have a place where they can walk on the side of the road. Totally understandable. However, most of the areas were not designed with sidewalks in mind, especially those areas like in the 60s, 70s, maybe before that 50s, 40s. Those areas didn't have sidewalks, and so a lot of these areas are super quiet, but you have to walk on the street instead of off the street. And so, for example, where we live, I live in a neighborhood that does not have sidewalks. But you know what? Every like 30 to 45 minutes, literally, if it's sunny out, you'll see people walking or people walking their dogs. It's pretty common, and so people are used to walking through neighborhoods, walking through quiet areas without having sidewalks. That being said, there are some neighborhoods that do have sidewalks. They do exist. Just don't expect them when you get here. There will be a lot of neighborhoods that have sidewalks in Chesapeake, in Virginia Beach, and Suffolk also, as well as Williamsburg and Yorktown. I would definitely check out Google Maps if this is a big thing for you. Next is the topography of Virginia Beach. It's flat. So not just Virginia Beach, the entire area around here is flat. No matter if you drive through Virginia Beach, Suffolk, Newport News, through the peninsula or the south side, for the most part, it's going to feel flat. Williamsburg has some spots that have some hills. It's kind of a nice different pace from what most of the rest of the area feels like. But in Virginia Beach specifically, Mount Trashmore. If you drive down a street called Independence Boulevard and look, you'll see a bunch of commercial buildings and houses, and then all of a sudden, boom, this hill, right? It's 60 feet tall. tall. It was a big landfill that was converted into a park, which they started in 1974. And even this park is mostly flat, but the amount of trash that is now a big grassy knoll is 60 feet tall and over 800 feet wide. But it's tall in the context of how tall everything else is in Virginia Beach. So if you go up to the top of Mount Trashmore, it's probably one of the tallest spots in the city. It's even funny because there are signs that they post to show you when the park is closing. It says on there, mountain closes at 8. Number 8 is, people ask me all the time, where can I find a house with character and a neighborhood with character? This kind of exists, but based on your personal preferences, you might not be happy with what you find. So for example, if you want a neighborhood that has lots of character in it, like for example, older trees, wide streets, quiet, unique, not, like perfectly planned out. If you want that kind of a thing, most of these areas are older, for example, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. If you want new construction, that exists, but you might not get the same type of feel. So for example, in Suffolk, in Chesapeake, in Virginia Beach, all the new construction that's being built, it feels great, it looks great, the houses look nice, but you don't really have the maturity of the neighborhood. So I found that the best balance of all of that, the character of the house, character of the neighborhood together, I like looking at the houses built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s because you get the neighborhood that has, to me, the best bang for buck and combo of style of house, look of house, location, and feel of neighborhood, and uniqueness of the neighborhood. Now next is rentals are extremely hard to find and they are very expensive. Now that's short term or long term. So if you do plan to move here and you're trying to plan in advance, you'll notice that rentals will come up and they'll just disappear super quickly. It's hard to find rentals, especially in certain school districts. They just go really fast. It's been really hard to fix this. There are some different things you can do. Number one is if you're looking for something that is short term, if you're looking to buy and do something short term, I'll drop some links below for short term rental options that I've found that are probably the best options. The reality is there aren't any perfect options. You can even check out vacation rentals during some parts of the year. If you're looking off season, in the fall, winter, and early spring, you might find a vacation rental that you can use for a short term and then give you time to settle yourself and find the right house. But the reality is this is a common issue for everybody. Even people that live here, it's hard to find rentals. Same goes for rentals long term. So if it were me, I would do as much as you can to come here at least once to see where you want to live, so you can decide, hey, do I want to buy now and not have to deal with the rental issue? Or do I want to get a short-term rental and then figure out, where I want to live in those couple of months? Or do I need to focus on a longer-term rental because I just don't know where I want to live? I would definitely keep your options open. If you want a rental, be very vigilant about the process and the search process, because when they go up on the market, a lot of the best ones go extremely quickly. That leads me to number 10, which is don't discount school districts that aren't ranked like the top on the list. For example, niche.com. Niche.com does a great job of ranking schools and giving more information. But I do think that, for example, in Virginia Beach, because school districts are extremely highly sought after and desirable, there are some that might slip through the cracks to me that aren't ranked as high, but I would still consider them. For example, Kempsville, Tallwood. So while the rankings do help, I don't think they tell the whole story, so I would definitely talk to other people that live in these areas if you can before you move to see maybe you can find some good value in other school districts that aren't in areas that you might have expected, and they're also a little bit cheaper, partially because of those school districts. Now, if you have any more questions about living here or moving to Virginia Beach or the areas around here, let me know. I have my contact information in the description. Any additional questions you want to drop in the comments, feel free, and I will also answer them as well there too. And I will see you on the next video.